Hey, I'm Charles. I'm the lead kickboxing instructor at Augusta Jiu-Jitsu Academy, and today I wanted to show you some techniques that are pretty fundamental, some stance stuff, how you should be throwing punches while you're moving, what's a good stance, what are you trying to do with your stance, these types of things. This video is aimed for kind of the beginner, maybe the intermediate, but I think everybody can learn a little bit from the stuff that we're doing today. So to start off with, I would like to just talk a little bit about foot placement, because all of the power from your punches or your kicks or elbows or knees starts from the ground. So having a good connection to the ground is very important. So there's all different styles of kickboxing and fighting, regular boxing, taekwondo, all different goals in these different martial arts, and the stance reflects those goals for each martial art. So some things I'm going to say today you might deviate from, and you should deviate from, depending on what you want to do and how you want to do it. But the stance that I'm going to recommend for you today is kind of like a home-based stance. You can do a lot from this stance, and you can play with it and mess with it to your own liking, but this is a good home base. It's a good place where you can do a lot of different stuff. So if we take our feet about shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit further, and if I'm right-handed, generally speaking, I want to take my right foot back further than my left foot. And I don't want to over-exaggerate this distance. So a good rule of thumb is that if my back foot, the toes are more or less lined up with my heels, I know I've got good separation in this plane. So I've got shoulder width apart. I've got my back foot back a little bit, kind of cocking my power side back. Now, my back foot is going to be turned off at like a 45-degree angle. And what this does is it opens my hips up, because what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to throw strikes. I want to be able to throw kicks, whether they're going to be straight kicks or round kicks. I want to be able to throw knees. And what opening up that stance does is it opens my hips up, and it makes my knees take a good position to get wide kicks and to get good form when I throw my kicks. So my back foot is off at a 45-degree angle, and my lead foot is kind of turned in towards my opponent, straight in like this. So this is a good place for your feet to be. And from here, we've got a good wide stance in this plane right here, and then a good wide stance in this plane. So if I start to narrow my stance, it'll give me an advantage when I want to move in and I want to move out. But it gives me a disadvantage if I want more lateral movement to my sides. So I might choose to narrow my stance if I want to get in and out, but my home base is more square. Now, I don't want to be too square, because now I've got good lateral movement. I've got good ability to kind of slide in, slide out, and I can get good power with my hooks when I take a square stance. But now my ability to move forward and backwards is greatly diminished. So having a good square, neutral stance allows me to move forward and backwards, allows me to move sideways. So it gives me a good home base for my movement and for my different strikes that I want to throw. I want to make sure that I'm not straight-legged, because the whole point, like I said at the beginning of the video, is to derive power from the ground. And in order to do so, we have to have our feet planted at the correct place, but we also need to be loose. We can't be stiff in our shoulders or in our knees, because we need to whip this power from the ground. Part of getting power behind your kicks or your punches is about finding the middle ground between being stiff and being relaxed. So in that theme, we're going to keep a little bit of bend in our knees, and this is so that we can shift our weight from our back leg to our front leg as we're throwing strikes or as we need to move. These are the types of things that you need to be thinking about. And this is the reason why we want to keep a little bit of bend, but you don't want to over-exaggerate it, so you don't want to be down here, So we got our feet in a good position, foot's cocked back at 45 degrees. I got a little bit of bend in my knees. I want to keep my chin tucked down, my shoulders up a little bit, and I want to keep my hands up. Now, there's a reason for everything that I just described. So I want to keep my chin down because anytime you keep your chin up, you give a very obvious target for your opponent. And I want my shoulders up a little bit for the same reason, because as I throw strikes, keeping my chin down and my shoulders up will protect me. So as I throw my jab, my chin's down, my shoulders are up, I have a natural wall that will defend me against the counter hooks. So if I don't raise my shoulders and I keep my chin up and I throw my jab, I've got a lot of space to get countered here. So just by your stance, you can take a good defensive stance and chin down, shoulders up, and you kind of want to be looking up at your opponent like this. Your eyes are up and your chin is down. And this is going to give you a good defensive, powerful stance. Now your hands are going to be moving, you're going to be throwing strikes. You know, if you're in a real fight, you don't have gloves. So you got to start thinking about the specifics, because the specifics matter. If you're learning to fight and you're going to be wearing gloves, I would recommend keeping your knuckles at about cheekbone height right here. And this is a good place to, it's not too high, it's not too low. You're blocking a little bit naturally. You're in a good position to push out punches because you're right at about shoulder height or a little bit higher. And you're in a good place to defend for punches if you got these big gloves. Now, if you don't have gloves and you're in a fight stance and, you know, a lot of this material is not going to be there. So you might want to take a higher guard, or you might want to utilize your movement more. So just giving you a little bit of philosophy about where your hands are, where your feet are, why these things are true. We've talked a little bit about our stance, and I've alluded a little bit to how you're going to be throwing punches. Now I want to show you how you're going to throw some punches and how you can move while you throw these punches. And you can do so in a way that doesn't overextend yourself and doesn't get your footwork choppy. So we take our good stance, our good neutral stance, and before I start moving, I want to talk a little bit about punching. So when we punch, we're going to be shifting our weight, you know, from our lead leg to our rear leg and back and forth. And one thing we want to make sure we do is that when I throw my left punch, my right hand needs to stay up and might even come up a little bit higher than it started initially. And what I would like to not start doing when I'm shadowboxing at home or when I'm hitting the pads in kickboxing class, I don't want to start dropping my opposite hand. So as I throw my jab, my right hand is here against my face, up and blocking. As I throw my right hand, my left hand is up and blocking. And it's not just to make sure you're blocking in case someone counters. Keeping your hands up is a good thing for your form. It makes sure that you're not throwing punches from down here. You want your hands up because you will get the most power out of your strikes when your hands are up. So as I throw my jab, if my right hand starts to fall as I do this, and then I want to throw a right hand afterwards, it's going to come from down here. And I'm not pushing out of my shoulder, I'm flipping up. There's a elevation change that takes a little bit of energy out and a little bit of the whipping motion out. So I want to keep my hands up as I'm throwing punches, not just to defend, but also to prepare myself for the upcoming punches. Now, I want to talk about how we're going to throw punches while we move forward. So if I take a couple steps back and I get into my fight stance, when I move forward, and when I move in general, a good rule of thumb is that you're going to lead in the direction that you want to move. So if I want to move forward, the first movement needs to be with my lead leg. I need to reach and open my stance and then close it when I step forward. So I'm going to open my stance with my first step forward and then close my stance with my second step up. And when I move like this, it allows me to stay in a situation where my stance is wide and then narrows to normal. If I do it the other way, if I want to move forward and I start with my rear leg, I'm going to have a moment where my feet are together. Not only is this bad because when my feet are together, I can't get any power from the ground because I can't rotate my hips as well, I'm also vulnerable. When I'm in a good, powerful stance, if someone kicks me here, or someone throws a hook and hits me, I have a much better ability to catch myself and to sit down and accept some of that energy. if my feet are together and I get kicked, I might fall over. It's not a good thing. So as you move, you want to make sure that you're moving in a powerful way. So as we move forward, we're going to lead with our forward leg. Then we're going to take the same distance step with our rear leg to bring us back to our home base. Now, as we move, we can throw strikes. So one thing to notice is as I take a lead step with my lead leg, my left hip turns forward a little bit. We can utilize that motion to get a little power on our jab. So as I take my lead step, my jab comes out. And the timing of it is such that when my foot touches down, my punch is fully extended. The same is true with the rear leg. So as I close this distance, my hip is turning, and I'm going to utilize that to push my right punch out. And as this foot stops and presses down, my punch comes fully extended. So I'm just going to step forward, step, step, and as I throw steps, I'm going to throw punches. And this is a drill you can do in your room, you can do in your backyard. This is an everyday thing. If you would like to get good at kickboxing, you got to start moving and punching. So as we move forward, we throw strikes. You can move forward and then throw strikes, but a lot of times in the movement, we catch our opponent. So as they're sliding back and you're closing that distance by sliding forward, the time is then to throw the punch. If you wait till you settle down, you might have missed your window. So moving while you're punching is a highly important thing to start doing quickly if you want to become effective in your kickboxing.